Welcome, replay viewers. My name is Michael Aud and I'm here at the State Library of New South Wales for the 8 Days in Kamay exhibition. G'day Crisco, g'day Happy. So I'm probably not going to make too much noise while I do this. But look, you might recognise this place. I was there the other day. Yeah, what a day. G'day Matthew. So this is all about the first encounter with European, or more to the point, James Cook's expedition with to chart the east coast of Australia, and his encounter with the Griagal people. So where we are here at the State Library of New South Wales, we're on Gadigal land, so I pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and any other First Nations people that might be watching the broadcast. So it sounds like there's a bit of work going on somewhere. So I'm not the noisiest. So it says here, in April 1770, strangers appeared off the shore of Kamay, Botany Bay. The 8 days these strangers spent on Griagal lands and waters pulsed with curiosity and unease on both sides. For the Griagal people, the arrival of visitors was a serious occasion, but their attempts to be understood and respected by the crew of the Endeavour were misunderstood or ignored. This fraught encounter escalated when the ship's captain, Lieutenant James Cook, and his landing party shot an elder on the shore, and with this act of violence, the opportunity to learn from the Griagal people was lost. So this says contested legacies. Pirate, hero, both, neither. The way James Cook is remembered in Australia remains deeply contested. The 8 days he spent in Kamay are surrounded by countless myths and exaggerations which have been compounded by an unwillingness to confront the violence Cook inflicted on many First Nations people across the Pacific. The untarnished image of Cook as an explorer and skilled navigator has long been a seductive one, but for many, he symbolises one of the darkest and most brutal parts of Australia's history. The legacy of Cook's time in Kamay has been shaped over the years by the imagery which has accompanied it, usually constructed by the colonial powers in order to reinforce the image of a brave explorer leading Great Britain into a new world. Imagery is powerful, and in this room we see artists use this power to question the mythology. Who was James Cook, and are we, 250 years after his landing, better served if we examined this legacy truthfully or if we maintain the myths? What sort of future can we look forward to thanks to the critical eye of the arts? The labelled texts by Arente writer and social commentator Celeste Little guide you through the works in this room. So there you go. That's what we're looking at. G'day Greenie. Hey Greenie, I finished watching that documentary on the Steinway House. It was quite interesting. Hey Sonia. So this is by Vincent Namatjira. Yeah, it was an interesting piece of history. I didn't know all of that. Yeah, don't know about that, Matthew. Don't know. So this one's Cook's Dinner Party, also by Vincent Namatjira. Yeah, I remember you noted that, yeah, in your message. I saw that. And I think that was your uncle was the guy that was talking, the guy that looks after the house and was talking in that video, wasn't it? Okay, Ava. Yeah, I saw your mum in it. Yeah, I recognised her. So this one's called We Call Them Pirates Out Here by Daniel Boyd in 2006. So it's also by Daniel Boyd. Oh well, we're in a nice quiet place here, Greenie. You can stay nice and settled. Well, there's a picture of him in the other room, but he was, I guess what he's most famous for is that he was the botanist on the Cook's journey on the Endeavour, charting the east coast of Australia. No, I believe the Endeavour was discovered somewhere off North America. They reckon they found where it sank or it scuttled off, I don't know, it was off Maine somewhere. They reckon they found the Endeavour. No, this is part of the state library. It's completely free to come in any time. So I'm going to wave my hand over this. Well, that's no good, Greenie. Well, all I can do from here is try and keep a nice calm voice. Let's have a look at these. Suppose, I can imagine. I was just out here the other day. There's another one over here. Just sitting out there. G'day, dates and milk. So anyway, this is, oh, they've got this over here. Oh, doing all right. You know, keeping busy. Are these owls? No. Yeah, You'll have to watch the replay, but I'll keep moving through the exhibition. You guys can look this up online for references, though. If you look up 8 Days in Kamay, the New South Wales State Library. This exhibition is actually online. You can go to the State Library website, State Library of New South Wales, and you can actually see this whole exhibition online. Move on to the next room. So if you see anything here that you want to see in detail, go onto the website and it's all there. So this is important. It's proof that he knew it wasn't terra nullius. So this is Senior Guergo knowledge holder Shane Williams. My great uncle, he speaks about how Cook was coming up the coastline. Our Aboriginal tribes from the south were sending people with message sticks all the way up. They were being tracked all the way up. So the Aboriginal people here, the Guergo people, knew they were on their way. They were waiting for them. They were prepared, so I can't see how the British discovered us when in fact we discovered them at Point Hicks and followed them all the way along the coast. We discovered them before they even set foot on the land. We saw them coming. For thousands of generations, Aboriginal people have cultivated vast trade and communication networks across the continent. Through our songlines, we share the knowledge, news, language, and song. Groups along the coast traded with those inland, ensuring we had access to foods, medicines, and materials needed to look after country and kin. Special materials including pearl shells and ochre often travelled thousands of kilometres and became powerful cultural items and important elements of our law and ceremony. As our tools and technology travelled, so did our stories. Through message sticks, smoke signals and corroborees, we kept in touch and maintained the sophisticated lines of communication. It is hardly surprising then that the arrival of strangers in April 1770 was immediately noticed and news spread quickly up the coast. Signal fires were lit all along the shore, tracking the strangers as they moved towards Kamay.
found as he turned north and travelled along the coast, North Wood, he noticed that it was cold as a smoke all the way along the coast. We call it Bundaberry smoke. And even Banks, I think, he wrote in his own journal that things that were being tracked and followed. And in fact, that's what we do. We exactly track them all the way along the coast. As well as the smoke signals, it was message 6-man ball all on the coast as well. Or leather sticks, as my great uncle says, he describes it, and to warn people that don't go their way. So those paintings would have been, it could be both like a cross between welcoming paintings, body markings and paintings, and ones that challenge people as well. We weren't sure who they were, let's say. Probably the first time we'd seen Europeans that close up. There was no time for people to consider their arrival, That was quite hasty, I think. It was keen for people to get ashore and collect, plant species and so forth. Above anything else. Like that was their agenda, was to do that. It was a scientific expedition at the end of the day. But as we know, despite being advised by the Admiralty not to interfere with people they came across, or even to sequester other people's lands, they did so, But welcoming is all about people paying respect to the lands of people who people who welcome them there as well, and respect their presence. So it was reciprocal. And we did have a political structure. We were very diplomatic in our own way. So we always sent someone first to negotiate the entry of their problem. So we might have diplomat private negotiate that and reach a decision that what knowledge do you know that they bring? What value do they add to it? So I can't see where he discovered us. In fact, we discovered them when he was well on the coast. So what happened here is the beginning of the end. One of our cultures, one across the nation, and it isn't one African person that hasn't been affected in one way or another by this event. We've still got a lot of unfinished business in these governments. And it's taken a long, long time for them to, get into a position where we can have proper negotiations and talk with them about where we want to go from here. As far as I'm concerned, we're not demanding minority groups in this country. We're the country's first people. We are this country. This country is us.
See, they called it Stingray Bay. Originally, Stingray Bay. But it was soon changed to Botany Bay after they realised all the botanical discoveries. So this is the map that they had previously. So this Tabagai, well, if you go and watch my scope from the other day, that's where I started at the gap where the cliff dwellers were, at the Tabagai gap. Is we gather around the shore while the kids are sent inland and hidden from view. The lawman and his nephew are painted up in ochre and standing at the shore as the strangers come towards us. This is their chance to follow protocols of welcome, but our calls for them to leave seem to go unnoticed, and our warning spears have no effect. The strangers force themselves ashore. With their ignorance and violence, they destroy their chance at being welcomed to country. And we glimpse how dangerous these strangers can be. So this is by Tupaya, their translator, who turned out not to be able to translate very much when they got here. Well, you can check the title. So you called it New Wales, or east coast of New Holland. You've already called it New South Wales. So this is from Cook. I thought that they beckoned us to come ashore, but in this we were mistaken, for as soon as we put the boat in, they came again to oppose us, upon which I fired a musket between the two, which had no other effect other than to make them retire back where bundles of their darts lay, and one of them took up a stone and threw it at us, which caused my firing a second musket load with small shot, and although some of the shot struck the man, yet it had no other effect other than to make him lay hold of a shield or target to defend himself. This is Cook's chart of Botany Bay. So the area where I was scoping the other day is sort of down here. It's not, well, okay, I'll take you back. So prior to Cook's expedition, the maps that they had called the unknown southern land New Holland, because the Dutch had explored. Right? So what he's calling it is, he's calling it New Wales, or the east coast of New Holland, because it was known as New Holland at that time. So he's calling it the east coast of New Holland. G'day, Neil. So this is Botany Bay, right? Don't think so, man. So as I explained earlier now, Cook's initial name for it was Stingray Bay because he saw so many stingrays. Yeah, was it relevant in the 17th century now? Because that's when they were talking about it. So they called it Stingray Bay, but after all the amazing botanical finds, when they went ashore, they renamed it to Botany Bay for all the botanical discoveries. So Uncle Dooker, he used to do the nets. He knew how to fish and take the net around. Everyone would be down there on the beach helping pull the net in, kids and all. And after that, we'd all have a feed of mullet or whatever was in the net, and that's how we used to live. Okay, Athena. Welcoming is all about people paying a deep respect to the lands that they're entering. Now here, to answer Neil's question about botany, it says the shores of Kamay have always been a place of significance and plenty. Teeming with plants and animals, they provided the Guyagal people over thousands of generations. This diversity and natural abundance were recognised, though not understood, by the crew of the Endeavour. In the last days of April 1770, the shore would become a symbolic and literal line in the sand as Guyagal people tried to stop the strangers from the Endeavour landing at Kamay without consent. Well, I guess the subject matter isn't really a joking one now, so maybe that's what she's talking about. So this is Acacia ulicifolia. Juniper. Yeah, prickly Moses, that's what I know it as. So all these sketches are by Sydney Parkinson. So the specimens are collected by Banks. And the reproduction drawings were by Parkinson. I just told you where it is. Yeah. Hmm? It's Acacia ulicifolia, which is one of the flowers I showed on my scope the other day. The wattle with the little yellow sort of pom-poms. This one is Melaleuca nodosa. Melaleuca. So most Melaleucas are known as paperbarks. This one's Melaleuca timifolia. So moving inland from the shoreline at Kamay through the scrub and coastal woodlands, you get a sense of the diversity of plants and animals that once thrived there. Banks and Solander described and collected more than 135 specimens in the 8 days they spent at Kamay. While many native flowers and trees still grow there, the marsupials that were once plentiful can no longer be found. Well, they managed the land for tens of thousands of years. They knew exactly how to read the seasons, how to manage the land, when to burn it, when to do what, and how to keep everything in balance. Well, they're not extinct, they just don't exist there anymore because it's basically surrounded by suburbia. So this is journal. G'day Bill, g'day Udia. So this tells you a bit about Banks. So let's talk a little bit about Banks. So unlike Cook, the 25-year-old naturalist Joseph Banks was born into wealth and influence, and his support and money were essential to the Endeavour journey. Banks inherited his father's considerable estate in 1761, and soon after this, in 1766, became a Fellow of the Royal Society in London. He lobbied fiercely to be a part of the Endeavour journey and would later be instrumental in the establishment of the penal colony of New South Wales. Banks's account of the 8 days in Kamay is the most florid and detailed, particularly his description of the violence that occurred on 29th of April, as the strangers attempted to force themselves onto the shore. Hey, Grant. Oh, no, that's all right, Grant. No worries. It's okay. G'day, Katie. Reckon you could read all that? Morning. So this is an excerpt from Banks's journal. A musket loaded with small shot was fired at the eldest of the two, who was about 40 yards from the boat. It struck him on the legs, but he minded it very little, so another was immediately fired at him. On this he ran up to the house about 100 yards distant and soon returned with a shield. In the meantime we had landed on the rock. He immediately threw a lance at us, and the young man another, which fell amongst the thickest of us, but hurt nobody. Two more muskets were with small shot were then fired on them, on which the eldest threw one more lance and then ran away, as did the other. Oh, you said relique. So this one is Stiphelia viridis, green 5 corners. Thanks for sharing out, guys. So the quote here from Wollongong elder Joe Timbery. When I was a young boy, there used to be a bush called the Five Corners, something like a tube, green. They had a little seed inside, and you could eat them, you'd chew them. They were very nice. Five Corners, they're still around today. Now, this is an interesting one because this is one of the most common landscape plants we use in Sydney. This thing grows everywhere. Ground covers everywhere. Everyone's got this in their garden. Oh. Come to Sydney, Athena, it's everywhere in every single garden. So this is the Endeavour collections. During the Endeavour voyage, Banks and his team of 9 scientists, artists, servant field assistants took more than 30,000 plant and 1,000 animal specimens representing over 3,600 species. Most are now in the collection of the Natural History Museum in London. The specimens displayed here are from a group of 586 duplicates given by the museum to Sydney's Royal Botanic Garden in 1905. Taking specimens and objects from First Nations people was common, and though objects were sometimes traded, the exchanges were rarely equitable. Many museums and libraries are full of these materials, including human remains and sacred items that were taken without consent and sometimes through violent force. The Guyagal people at Kamay showed no interest in the gifts left by the Endeavour crew in place of stolen spears, food and other objects. So here's some of the...
You can also use the branches and leaves itself, you know.
He's talking about the cabbage tree palms.
In summertime, you know, rather than make a...
Like many plants and animals in Aboriginal culture, the cabbage tree palm has many uses as well as a deep spiritual and cultural role. Aboriginal knowledge systems don't make a distinction between spirituality, science, and many dreaming stories weave in elements of both. Guyagal people soaked the heads of the cabbage tree palm in water and roasted them before eating. The branches and leaves were used to build shade and shelter, and later to patch up the roofs of early colonists' homes. Cook notes in his journal that these trees had steps or ladders cut into them which would have been used to harvest the edible heads, to gather seeds for cultivation. Guyagal people planted small clusters of the trees for shade and harvesting food, although many European observers put this down to luck or the natural formation of the plants. Well, I mean, I'm here to learn just as well as you guys are. I'm just sharing what I'm learning with you. Seeing without understanding. During their 8-day stay, members of the Endeavour crew sketched, described and assembled an array of specimens. We can see their attempt to understand and record the vast number of new plants and animals they were seeing and eating. Cook first named Kamay Stingray Bay, but later crossed this out and wrote Botany Bay. In both names, he was recognising the area's diversity of plants and animals. This is one of the few common understandings between the strangers and the Guyagal people. European naturalists were curious about the plants, animals and landscapes they encountered, but their ways of describing and classifying the natural world couldn't make sense of the complex interrelationship between land, living ecosystems and culture at the centre of Guyagal life. So there's more plants in here. So this is the flannel flower, which I showed you guys. Remember I was telling you about the flannel flower on my scope and telling you how it felt so soft like a flannel. So this is it here. This is Banks's specimen. So that says Actinotus helianthii. Yeah, it's a white flower with a flannel. The flower feels like a flannel. I mean, these are dried specimens. So yeah, it's very velvety. Here's the drawing of it. So it says here, when different flowers are out, you know what fish are running. The golden flowers on the wattle tell you that the brim are running. Mullet is associated with the tea tree, which flowers around Easter. When you see the whales up and down the coast, it means that the snapper are running. This is taught to us by the elders and passed on through generations. The bush is our atlas, our Bible, our history book, geography book and science book. Even the migration of the birds tell you things. You know what food is there because the birds are there to eat the berries. So there you go, there's flannel flower. This iconic wildflower blooms year-round, but with a particular flourish in spring months, and its resilient seeds grow back quickly after fire or controlled burning. The flowers have a spiritual and medicinal properties and feature in Dharawal dreaming stories. Rock carvings. So rock carvings around Sydney's coastline show many different kinds of animal and sea life. Many of these carvings were sketched in the late 1890s by non-Aboriginal people. Some of these ancient artworks have since been built over, eroded or forgotten, and the sketches are the only record of them. So this one, yeah. So that's what this one is there. So what they're doing is they're drawing what they saw in the rock carvings. So here, this is a bit of a description of the animals. So this is from Joseph Banks on the 4th of May 1770. We saw one quadruped about the size of a rabbit. We saw also the dung of a large animal that had fed on grass, which much resembled that of a stag. Also the footsteps of an animal clawed like a dog or wolf, and as large as the latter, and of a small animal whose feet were like those of a polecat or weasel. The trees over our heads abounded very much with lorikeets and cockatoos, of which we shot several. So he's kind of describing the kangaroo there, but they didn't actually see the kangaroo until they got much further north. So that's the lemon-scented bottle brush, Callistemon citrinus, which has a nice lemon scent when you crush the leaves. Oh, sorry, the one with the rabbit, that's a different one. I think the one he's talking about with the rabbit, quadruped about the size of a rabbit, that might have been something else. But when he's talking about, we saw the dung of a large animal that fed on grass that resembled a stag, they were describing the kangaroo poo. Yeah, well, it could have been a wallaby, I suppose. I'm not sure. So this is Hardenbergia, which is another pretty common garden plant these days with purple flowers. Yeah, Rupu. Yeah, exactly. But the interesting thing is that they travelled all the way along the eastern coast of Australia, and they didn't see kangaroos until they got right up north in Queensland. And I forget where it was that they saw them, but that's where the name kangaroo comes from the name that the people up there gave it. But it wasn't until way up in far north Queensland that they actually saw a kangaroo, which is interesting. Well, sarsaparilla can be a drink, yes. But he's talking about the sarsaparilla plant. It reminded them of sarsaparilla. So here's some more. G'day, Maran. Yeah, a lot of things have medicinal properties. So this one is Rhagodia Candlana, seaberry saltbush. Yeah, well, you can probably look up a lot of this stuff. I mean, I'd say a lot of these plants they used for certain medicinal purposes. Anyway, look, this is another thing from Banks here. The captain and Dr. Solander employed the day in going into the pinnace, a small boat, into various parts of the harbour. They saw fires at several places and people who all ran away at their approach with the greatest precipitation, leaving behind the shellfish in which they were cooking. Of this our gentlemen took the advantage, eating what they found, and leaving beads, ribbons in and sea in return. So they took their shellfish that they were cooking, and left beads and ribbons. So Rock Cliff Cave. The rocks and cliffs of Kamay were home to many caves and rocky overhangs that the Guyagal people used for shelter, cooking and socialising. In the cooler months, they would light large fires under the overhangs to cook shellfish and seasonal seafood, warming the surrounding rock as an added benefit. Large deposits of shells, fish bones, and implements known as middens can be found throughout Kamay, providing evidence of where Guyagal people lived and the foods they ate. So now I've showed this a couple of times, but you see a lot of time on these rock overhangs, you can see the roof is very black, and that's from all the fire ash, over the years. I've showed that on scope a few times. So here you go, there's a jellyfish. Lots of these in Botany Bay. This is sandstone, yes. That is. Well, it's a picture of sandstone. There's more sandstone. No, that's not a man of war. That's so that's why a lot of these, see how a lot of these are not fully coloured? They're drawn and only partly coloured. So it says here, during the voyage, Parkinson made 674 outline drawings and 269 finished watercolour paintings before his death at sea in January 1771. Over the next decade, Banks employed 5 artists to complete Parkinson's unfinished drawings, as well as 18 engravers to make copper engravings for their planned publication, but the project was too costly even for Banks, and he abandoned it. It took until the 1980s for all the works to be published in colour. There you go. So this is the journal of Peter Briscoe. Another of Banks's servants, Peter Briscoe, records in his journal the original name Cook gave to Kamay, Stingray Bay. Yeah, I know, it's hard to read, isn't it? Yeah, I'm glad I don't have to read it. So here we go. Talking about the stingrays, here's the stingray. Yeah, something like that, Moran, exactly. Took a screenshot, then destroyed it. Yeah, that's right. No, they're two different species. So several species of stingray found at Kamay feature prominently in the accounts of Cook and his crew. While they caught and ate large quantities of rays and initially named the place Stingray Bay, they noted that the Guyagal people did not. It was thought that the stingray might be a totem for the Guyagal people, but it is more likely that with the wealth of other food sources, it was simply not part of their regular diet. These sketches by Herman Sporing Banks, Banks's secretary, and an accomplished artist, are the first known illustrations of these species by a non-Aboriginal person. So that's him. Don't even. There you go. So this is James Cook. So he says, stingrays I believe they do not eat because I never saw the least remains of one near any of their huts or fireplaces. However, we could know but very little their customs, as we never were able to form any connection with them. They had not so much as touched things we had left in their huts on purpose for them to take away during our stay in the harbour. So yeah, they left them all these gifts and they just left them there like, yeah, what's this? The author of the book, about Cook, that was Peter Fitzsimons, did the book about James Cook. So if you want to read a really good book about Cook, Peter Fitzsimons.
May I ask you why you're doing all this?
Oh, just sharing with people on the live stream, showing around the exhibit, like, internationally. People that can't come here.
You're taking every single thing, that's why I'm asking why is that?
Oh yeah, no, just showing all the details and reading it.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's about all. That's gone through everything now. Anyway, I'll go back to the beginning. I'll finish up over here. Yeah, that's right. That's the same one I mentioned the other day. Yeah. Yeah, well, I did talk to her before I started, and I said, "Look, is it okay if I go and do a video and live stream it?" And she said, "Yeah, that's okay, as long as it's not for commercial." And so I was like, "Yeah, okay." But then I don't think she quite understood what I meant, so maybe that's why she was asking why I'm looking at everything in such detail. Look, ready? Let's change him. Anyway, I read this one before at the beginning, but so there you go, that's it. Now there is a bit of other stuff. I'm not going to go through all these but these are some really interesting paintings these are all Sydney, all like early Sydney through history, up to some modern paintings. And actually I'll just go and show you through here because we were talking about Banks a lot, and there's a portrait of Banks in here. Show you so that's Banks. There he is. That's all. Oh, hang on, so you can see him. It's a bit hard to see him there. There's a lot of reflection, but there you go. That's Banks. That's the Sir Joseph Banks everyone's been talking about. But this is like John MacArthur, Elizabeth MacArthur. This is Lachlan Macquarie, the Governor Burke. There's all sorts. Thing is, what I'll have to do is, if I'm going to show all this sort of stuff, I have to get a second device so I can read all the numbers, because what you can do is you can go into the website and you can all the numbers are listed, and you can see what the painting is and all that sort of thing. See, maybe I'll show you here. See. So oh no, I can't go through all the paintings. Maybe another day we'll come here, but look. So you go on there, go to that website, and then you can look up the numbers. But that's their website, if you want to look at all the paintings. And then on the wall, see. Now this is a very famous painting of Arthur Phillip raising the flag in Sydney Cove in January 1788. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Sorry, Athena, I didn't read that properly. But see what it says down there. So, there you go. So that's quite a famous one, that one. Everybody's seen that painting. But there's quite a lot of stuff here. It would take a long time to go through it all, so I won't. I just wanted to stick to this one about the 8 days in Kamay. Well, it wasn't really. It was the starting of a British colony. Australia wasn't actually federated until 1901. Anyway, if you've made it this far and you would like to follow, yeah, by all means, give me a follow, and I'll try and show you around a few other places. And there's Cook. That's an interpretation of Cook Landing. That one's called. Yeah, Don't Follow Me Home, exactly. So yeah. Pirates. Anyway, that's it. I'm going to finish right here. So thanks for hanging out, guys. I'll catch you next time. Maybe tomorrow morning. We'll see what happens. But bye for now. No worries, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Bye. It's alright, I was just waiting for you all to finish. Yeah, no worries, Greenie. Bye. Bye for now.